Hi, welcome to the second episode of Gut Spiller. The meaning behind the name really is that I'm trying to ask questions that go a bit more deep, a bit more beyond what you might be asked on a normal kind of podcast when it comes to bands and stuff. It's like spilling your guts, that's the whole pun behind that. And today I've got Joe. Do you want to introduce yourself? Another Joe.
Two Joes. My name is Joe Mortimer. I'm a bass player for most death metal bands in the UK. I currently play with Crepitation and Crisis. I've played in a number of other bands previously. I also do session work, so I do record bass for bands around the world, and I've also played for a lot of bands live session work on tours, shows, festivals and such. And I'm also part of UK Slamfest events, UKSF events, which I'm currently wearing the t-shirt of from a past edition. So I do also book shows, festivals and tours around the UK. And have been doing that since 2015 under that name, but actually since about 2005 in other guises.
I guess we actually got introduced by George, who used to play bass for us, and then you put us on, didn't you? You put Kuma on like in Liverpool, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago maybe, no?
Yeah, it was a few years ago. Put Kuma on in EBGBS.
Yeah, I just remember it running like clockwork.
Yeah, it's probably I've got a lot of OCD with all the organisation of events. I think it helps with me being a musician and having played shows that I know how shows should run. So I want my shows to run the way that I would want a show to run that I was playing.
Well, I think you're nailing that. So yeah, let's kind of jump into the first question, which is trying to start every episode off with a bang. Like, what is your wildest story from music and touring?
So back in 2014, Crepitation were on our first US tour. We were on tour with Incinerate from Minnesota and Splattered from California, and we were scheduled to play a show in El Paso in Texas. For those people who may not know much about El Paso, it is literally on the border of Mexico, the border with Ciudad Juarez, which is also known as the home of the Mexican cartel. So after we loaded our gear in, the PA just blew up, and we were like, oh, okay, so what's going to happen? And then a band just turned up with a PA on the back of a flatbed truck and got the gig going again. We were like, all right, cool. And then just as we finished loading in the new PA, SWAT cars turned up outside the venue and gunned down 2 cars and then pulled people out of them and then hauled them away while there was just bullet-ridden cars outside, and we're like, okay, El Paso, Ciudad Juarez,
What was that? So, just unrelated to the show that was just happening?
Yeah, nothing to do with the show, just outside the venue. So we were like, okay. And then when we were like, obviously us like English guys would never really seen anything like that. We were like a bit shaken up, like, should we do something? Should we go? And so the barmaid came over with like a pitcher of beer per person, and we were like, okay, that's fine. So we just started drinking beer and stuff. So the show was going on and on. And then our guitarist, Matty, at the time came out and was just like, lads, don't go to the toilet. And we were like, what do you mean don't go to the toilet? I've just drank a litre, like a litre of beer. And he was like, so there's a tunnel through the toilets. And we were like, what do you mean? It's a tunnel to where? And he was like, there's a tunnel the cartel are using to move people under the fence between Texas and Mexico. Where we were like, what? I was like, nah, you're chatting balls, you're chatting bullshit. So I went inside, and then there was some very angry Mexican gentleman, shall we say, in the toilet, who forced us out and told us to go and use the ladies' toilet. And we were like, okay, I'm definitely just going to go and use the ladies' toilet and go back into the venue. And as I was trying to get through to the ladies' toilet, there was a lot of motorbikes and cars which had been, which were all in various stages of disarray, which were all being chopped up and kind of distributed. And we were like, so it's also a cartel chop shop as well. Fab. So then, as we were playing, by the time we'd actually got round to playing, which was about 1 a.m, when the show was meant to finish 2 hours earlier, our guitarist, again the same one who found the issue in the toilet, was absolutely rotten Couldn't play the set at all. Couldn't remember the songs. Couldn't stand up straight. Was just like stopping in the middle of tracks and skipping tracks and playing the wrong song. So it was an absolute shit show. And we were like, what is going on with this show? Why are we here? And then when we got off stage and stuff like that, it was an okay reception and stuff. And they were like, right, so what's the plan? Where are we staying tonight? And we all looked at each other and we're like, right, we are not staying in El Paso. We're not staying in El Paso. And then we got in the car and I think we drove to Colorado Springs. We just drove through the night until we could find a place and then pulled over at a motel and stayed in Colorado Springs because at the time, we were all, it was 10 years ago now, 10 years ago this summer, in fact. So we were all a little bit wet behind the ears when it comes to like touring in the US. It was the first time some of us had ever even been in the US. Our drummer had only just turned 21 that week while we were in the US. So we were all a little bit like, oh, we're not used to this at all. So we kind of just got on the road, went straight to the next motel that we could find, which was outside of Texas, until we felt a little bit safer. But that's probably one of the wilder stories. It's now permanently closed according to Google Maps, which I'm not surprised about. And it's literally, when you zoom in, it's like on the line between Texas and Mexico. So that was definitely one of the more mental stories, one of the crazy kind of situations we've been in.
We haven't played the US, but I've been as a tourist, and that is the only place I've ever nearly got shot. Like it's not music related, but I nearly got I got held at gunpoint by the LAPD, and
Wow.
yeah, it's like you say, it's you're just not used to it as a Brit, are you? But over there, it's people seem kind of ready to go at the drop of a hat.
I would say that most of my mental stories from touring are probably from times in the US, to be fair. Just crazy, interactions with insane racists and crazy bigots and just things that happen. It's just like, this is just not normal. How is this happening?
All right, so from the low point to the high point, what would you say has been the high point of your journey so far as a musician?
I would say like Crepitation, playing at the opening the Sophie Lancaster stage at Bloodstock in 2022. Definitely a high point during the whole day. It was a high point, but it was also a tragically low point for me because about 15 minutes before we went on stage, I'd received a call from one of my mum's best friends to tell me that she was really unwell, and that she needed to go to hospital and there was a chance that she might not come out. And I, like, my mum has now sadly passed away, but at the time she was unwell. She was recovering from cancer. She had a lot of issues with herself, and I knew that her personal health wasn't great. I'd been on tour at the time for a week already with Party Cannon. I was just doing their merch and tour managing because they were on tour with Guar. So I'd been away for a week and not really been able to keep in touch. And then I was literally on stage and had a phone call from this lady just saying, Kaz is really unwell. We need to take her to hospital, and I need to ask you some very difficult questions. And I'm on stage. The crowd just walked in, and I'm about to play at that time the biggest show of my entire life. And I was just like, what the hell do I do? Like, I was like, what do you expect me to do? I'm like 150 miles away from home. I can't be there now. So do I cancel and just go and get an Uber or a taxi straight home? Do I play the show? I've no idea what's going on. So I basically went backstage, necked a bunch of whiskey, and came back. And I was like, well, I've got to do this because my mum would kick off and freak out if I did just turn up at hospital. And she was like, hang on a minute, aren't you meant to be playing a festival and tour and stuff? So played the show, but the entire time with like a apple in my throat, just feeling like, should I be here? Should I be doing it? Should I be feeling guilty, or should I be feeling proud of what I'm about to do or what I'm currently doing? So it was really quite a weird kind of feeling. And then like the rest of the day, I was I obviously just I went and gave her a call after the show and spoke to her and stuff like that, and I was in bits, I was in tears, and then I kind of got way more drunk than I should have done, considering I was also on tour for another week afterwards. But it turned out that she was okay. Things weren't as bad as her friend had made out to be, but she was just catastrophizing. But that was a particularly high and low point kind of combined. But it was very much an emotional journey. But
Yeah, the only thing I've had that's similar to that is, when I found out that my grandma had passed away in 2018, I was on tour. We were about to go and play Brutal Assault. That was the next gig, and we went on stage. Obviously, I let the other two guys know, and George was like, "We'll do it for her," and it did make me feel better. She wouldn't have ever wanted me to be sad about it and to not play a show or anything like that. So, but yeah, I can kind of relate in a way to that. Do you feel satisfied by what you do, or are you one of them people a bit like me where it's like always like reaching for that next thing, or is there ever a point where it's like, no, that really has satisfied me in some way?
I never feel fully satiated, and it's not even just to the musical side of me. Like it kind of goes for so many things. I do wonder if I've got some form of like ADHD, perhaps, because I never feel like, even when everything's going well and everything's going smooth, and I'm not required to do anything, I feel like I should be doing something. I can't relax. I can't turn off. So, when I write a song, when I release something, when something comes out, when we get a good review, when we get a gig offer, or we do a good show and stuff like that, I feel satisfied in the sense that that moment was good, but then I'm straight away looking to the next moment. It's like the day after. It's like the day after your birthday, saying how old you're going to be on your next birthday. It's just like, why are you already looking that far ahead? Like, just kind of bask in the moment. And I don't feel like I do that enough. I don't reflect enough. I don't give myself enough time to think about what's going on. It's just like, right, what's next? You get to the gig, you set your merch up, you set your gear up, you play your show, you go to the merch, you sell your merch, you pack all your stuff up, you get it into the van, and you get it home, or you get it to the next place. And I'm people kind of refer to me as band dad, because I'm just like, right, this is what we're doing, this is where we're going, this is the service station we're stopping, and this is where you're buying lunch. And this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. We're up at this time, then we're moving here, and then we're going there. So I'm always kind of thinking. And then as soon as I get home, I'm like, right, I need to get on social media. I need to update everybody, tell everybody how the shows went. It's just always pushing forward. It's always the next thing and stuff like that. And it doesn't detract from the things that I've done. I'll never say like, oh, I didn't consider that show that we played, that festival we played. I think about them all the time. I can tell you the layout of some of the venues that I've done in tours in Asia or in America or Europe, because they're so kind of like burnt into me. But just constantly thinking.
Well, you're a bit like me, you play in a band and you kind of manage the band and you put on shows as well. And I think probably when you're as busy as we are, that does leave you less time to enjoy and feel satisfied by stuff, I dare say. Maybe other people who don't have so much to do, they're just sitting in the van after that show. Maybe they can let it all sink in a bit more, because they're not worrying about what needs to be done next.
Yeah, like I'm as soon as I'm finished, I'm like, right, get my gear away. I need to go and get on the merch stand now, because I need to get on the hustle and try and kind of get some sales in and get a couple more quid back in the coffers. And then I also like talking to people who want to come over and be like, oh, I've never heard you before, or this is the 10th time I've seen you, or whatnot. It's always nice to have that kind of interaction with people anyway. But it's usually me, within Crepitation at least, usually me in the merch stand. When I joined Copper Crisis, and I said to Steve, the guitarist, who's also the guitarist in both bands, I was just like, merch is your thing. Like I'll look after it if you need me to, but you're the one who's there, because I already do it so much with one band. I don't want to be that guy. I won't be able to walk off and go and get a beer and chat to people at the show away from the merch.
Okay, so tell me about the most meaningful connection you've made. I get the sense you've made a lot of connections, probably more than the average band member, but is there one that kind of sticks out for you?
Andrew Lamastro. He's the singer of a band called Cerebral Incubation. And I met him over in the US at that time, and I also helped them out on a European tour for the UK dates. I organised all the UK dates. And that was a crazy show. Actually, I might just go off on a tangent with that one. So we played a couple of shows. We played in Bristol, London, and Manchester, and I was with them. And I said to the guys the whole time, I was like, Manchester's going to be the show that kicks off. Like, that's going to be rammed because I'm hosting it. It's kind of closer to where I'm from. I know a lot of people there and stuff. And I invited Ingested to play it and Nihilism Incarnate. So it was in Retro Bar, which I think is 100 or so capacity. And the tickets, I had a bunch of tickets, advance tickets, so I ended up selling about 80 advance tickets. And on the door, I didn't realise at the time, but I'd let about another 70 people in, so we were vastly... I didn't realise till I counted up money the next day, because there was literally people coming up to the door and being like, I've just flown in from Germany, but the flights were delayed, and I'm like, what, you flown over for the show? And you're like, yeah. I was like, right, just leave your bags, I'll take your ticket later, just get in, go. But it was 2014, and it was the first time there was really this big clash and this meeting of genres between slam and beatdown. So there's all these slammer fans who just want to walk in a circle, kind of throwing hammers and stuff. And then there's all these beatdown guys who want to throw fists and throw feet, and kind of batter each other. Each to their own. I'm not going to judge. But there was such a big clash of the first time that there was this crossover. This was one of the first times that I was aware of, and it was a war zone. There was people walking out with footprints on the chest. There was. I remember seeing there's a guy, Kane, who kind of just walked over. He walked over to me. He was like, "Oh, have you seen Paulie P anywhere?" A guy I know from Leeds, and I was just like, "Oh, I'll have a look over there." Pointed over there. So there he is. Just as we pointed, I just seen a guy fist came over and punched Paulie P, and I was like, "What the hell, Kane?" He's 6'6", massive guy. He was training to be a cage fighter at the time. He was like, back in a minute, and it was just like. I just knocked over 50 people with a swing of his arm. I grabbed Paulie P out the way, and I was just like, what is going on? The one security guard who was there was just like, we need to shut the show down, and everybody was like, shut up, get out, and people were pushing him off the room, and I was like, oh my god. And at the time I was just starting to I was me and my now fiance Lisa, we were just starting to date. We were kind of getting on and stuff like that. And I messaged her. I was like, I'm really sorry, I can't really speak at the moment. There's been an ambulance called, and there's 3 police cars outside trying to separate people. And she was like, what? And this was her first foray into this kind of scene of music. And I'm surprised she's still with me, but here we are 10 years later, kids together and stuff like that. But yeah, it was
it's all done in love. That's what you tell.
Well, she now helps. She's the chief finance officer for UK Slamfest. That's how balls deep she went into the situation. So she definitely didn't run away from that. But I remember going outside at one point, just I need to get a fresh air. And I don't know what it was, something from a prison yard. There was one side of the road, it was all of the slammers, and on the other side it was all of the beatdown kids just shouting abuse at each other and threatening each other. And I was just like, oh my god, what is going on? But yeah, so the singer of Cerebral Incubation, Andrew Lamastro, I've been on tour with him in the UK and a little bit in Europe, and we've kept in touch. We became incredibly good friends. In fact, so much so that he invited me and Lisa over to his wedding, to his wife Irene over in Utah. So we flew over there from Las Vegas. We flew over to Las Vegas. Then we drove through to Utah. We had an amazing time with them for their wedding. It was such an honor. We were the only people from outside of America who were at the wedding. So everybody's like, why have you guys flown over? And we were like, well, he's such a close friend. We talk all the time. And he was like, oh, fair enough. So fantastic experience. And again, just one of those relationships that without being in music, without being in death metal, without slam and stuff like that, that friendship never would have happened. We never would have crossed paths. I never would have met him at all. And now he's somebody I consider a very close friend, if not a brother, So it's just those kind of interactions which you get from playing horrible music is just insane.
It's hard for people who are on the outside of it, especially our family members maybe who don't get it, but the connections it can forge when you've been through so much shit, I don't know. I feel like they're stronger than connections with other people in my life from just, I don't know, work or some kind of other hobby. It just runs deeper. It's like this family thing.
Yeah, it's like, it's family. It sounds cringy, it sounds cheesy, like, but like, when you live in a van with somebody for a few weeks, when you're sharing beds and arguing about the shower, and it's all the same stuff that you go through with a family member. It's when you're growing up and you got like a sibling who you're always like, rivalry, and you're like, oh, you've stuck toilet out, or you've ate my food. Everybody's getting a rage, and it's like the same thing which you do in bands. You take the mick, you have your inside jokes, and there's nothing. I don't know whether it's a good or a bad thing, but when you come off tour and you've got all of these stupid inside jokes that make sense only to you, and then you go to another group of people and you make that inside joke and everybody just looks at you like, what? And you're like, oh, never mind. You had to be there. It was, you try and explain it and be like, no, it's not even funny anymore. But it's those things which kind of make this whole, being a musician, being with a group of people, creating, traveling, experiencing, it makes these things just like, like we were saying before, some of the best things about being in a band and being a musician isn't necessarily the shows. It's the stuff that happens afterwards, the stuff that happens before, on the way to the show, on the way somewhere after a show. They're the stories that I like to tell. They're the stories I like to hear. Is all the dumb stuff that people have done before a show, during a show, after a show, but not the actual show, because somebody talking about how good a show was, it's like, oh yeah, sick crowd, loads of pits, we sold loads of merch, this, that, and the other. Somebody did a backflip off stage, it's the same kind of stuff all the time. Sometimes with a little bit of like, oh yeah, somebody broke an arm, but it's the kind of dumb stuff that you hear. It's like the home videos, like back in the day, there used to be loads of like all the home videos of the stupid shit bands got up to. So yeah, they're the best bits for me.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's exactly what I want this podcast to be about. So just to finish off, is there anything you want to kind of plug about stuff you're working on at the moment?
So Crepitation have got a new EP written. We've got 5 tracks, I believe it's going to be. We're booked into the record drums in July. That is in the Arch Studios in Southport by Tom Drink. So we're going to start off recording drums there. So we're hoping to get stuff recorded throughout July and August, and for a release later in the year. We don't really have an idea about labels or anything like that, but we may self-release it digitally. But that's coming up. Crepitation, got a whole bunch of festivals. We've got Death Coffee Party in Czech. We've got Rock the Hell in Switzerland. We've got Rape the Escape in Vienna. We've got a few other bits and bobs coming up. Is
that Rape the Escape?
It is, yeah.
Wow. Rape the Escape.
So the reason for the name is the venue is called The Escape, and they book a load of gore grind, porno grind type bands and stuff like that. So it's a bit of an intense name. But there is a reason for it. It's not just like escape the rape or something like that, because that's far too brutal. But yeah, so the venue's called The Escape. It's in Vienna. Played there a few times. Played the festival a couple of times. Cool underground kind of like bar in the middle of Vienna. Crepitation have just, as I mentioned earlier, released a live EP. If You Want Blood, stock. And we're starting to experiment with new music, writing new bits and bobs, trying to keep it as ridiculous as possible. And I personally have got a couple of other online projects that I've got with various people around the world.
Sick. All right. Well, it's been really good. You kind of told the type of story I wanted when I asked you to do it. So, yeah, that's sick. Thanks for being on it. And, we'll end it there and I'll speak to you soon. If you enjoyed that, you'll be pleased to know I've got loads more episodes planned with guests from the UK and more further afield. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and stay tuned for those episodes. Peace.